This segment of the news is brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.
Welcome back. All heads together for the Family Island administrators and their team to ensure they're hurricane ready. In fact, Bimini and Cat Key Administrator Police Superintendent Henry Roll says they have already evacuated residents.
As up to now, all the government buildings here on the island of Bimini are being secured by the local government and the volunteers. Ocean Key, all the persons on Ocean Key have been evacuated since last night. We had over 600 persons that came from Ocean Key. That's all of the persons in the construction work there. And in Cat Key, up until last night, we had 30 persons who had voluntarily left the island of Cat Key. And this morning, we had additional several persons who left that area also. Persons have been preparing to leave, and persons also who are intended to stay have secured their premises.
When speaking to our news team, North Andros Administrator Joseph Ferguson was in the midst of a meeting for their contingency plan.
We are determining what time we need to activate. All our shelters are ready. We're just waiting, and before we leave this meeting, we'll derive of a particular time, because the hurricane is hitting other areas at different times, and so we are activating our shelters as you speak.
Out of all the islands, Abaco is expected to experience the most impact from the storm. With that in mind, South Abaco's Donald Roll already had a plan in place for disaster relief.
Well, the contingency plan is that those in the corporations in terms of BTC and BPL, after the hurricane, along with the police, they will go out and do an assessment before we can get the all clear. And we have put in plan those with heavy equipment and those with high school buses that we need to transport persons or anyone that needed medical attention, that they will be able to seek medical attention as quick as possible.
Royal Bahamas Defense Force advanced support teams are to be deployed as requested to Family Islands ahead of the storm to assist local communities. Royal Bahamas Defense Force teams are already assisting local authorities and communities in Grand Bahama, Abaco, and Bimini, where they are stationed. Roll informed that there are 4 Defense Force officers on the island helping with preparation. Residents here in the capital are flocking to local food stores in hopes of bagging those last-minute necessity items. Our news team reached out to Extra Value Food Stores manager and buyer, DeMonte Major, to see how sales are going.
Sales are pretty going good today. We started to pick it up. Sales have started to pick up from mid-yesterday, around 6 p.m. We saw a tremendous pickup. The crowd started to dip a little bit. It looked like shoppers are coming back and they're getting ready, I guess, for the hurricane season.
Now, if you're wondering which items you should pick up, here's what Mr. Major suggests.
I would go with the staple items like corned beef, tuna, canned gas stoves, and all that sort of stuff, bread. And yeah, those are the most essential staple items that I think shoppers should pick up during hurricane season.
Again, New Providence is under hurricane watch, which means that hurricane conditions could affect us within 48 hours. As Hurricane Dorian travels through the Caribbean region, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force is making necessary preparations to assist with disaster mitigation, as well as disaster relief and recovery efforts. The Royal Bahamas Defense Force says contingency plans are already underway in the event the Bahamas is affected by Dorian. Officers and Marines have secured their bases and their homes prior to leaving families and loved ones behind when deployed to affected areas. 10 patrol crafts will engage in hurricane avoidance exercises with almost 200 officers and Marines on board. Depending on the path of the hurricane, Royal Bahamas Defense Force vessels are rerouted to sea as precautionary means as a part of the hurricane avoidance. After the storm passes by, these vessels will be on call to provide relief assistance to the affected islands. All marine craft should remain properly secured until weather conditions are safe for boating activities. The Ministry of Finance releasing the latest from its fourth quarter fiscal report this morning. With the details, we go to a report from our BJ McDermott.
The fiscal deficit improved by $192.8 million, or 46% to $222.4 million. This compared to how figures stacked up last fiscal year. Now, this year's fiscal deficit came out to some 1.7% of the GDP, which is in line with the 1.8% target for the fiscal year. In the underlying developments, revenue increased year over year by $373.9 million, or 18.3%, while expenditure advanced by $181.1 million, or 7.4% over the last fiscal year. Particularly, recurrent expenses rose by $232.6 million, representing a 10.6% rise over the prior year. However, capital expenditure narrowed by $51.5 million, or 19.2% as compared to last fiscal year. Aggregate revenue for the 2018-2019 fiscal year totaled $2,416.0 million, which equated to some 91% of the budget. This due to last year's hike in value-added tax, significant gains in stamp tax on realty transactions, the transaction of realty tax from VAT to stamp tax, and an uplift in business licenses receipts. On the expenditure side, total spending stood at $2,638.4 million this fiscal year. This represents 91.3% of the budget allocation, with recurrent expenses comprising the bulk of expenses at $2,421.2 million and capital outlays totaling $217.2 million. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Peter Turnquest says this is significant in the country's fiscal history and indicates the government's determined to put the country's fiscal house in order and committed to achieving a more sustainable fiscal position. He adds that the government's ultimate goal is to achieve sustainable economic growth that allows opportunity for Bahamians while maintaining economic and social benefits over the medium and long term. Reporting for JCN News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
And our final stories up next.
This segment of the news has been brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.